obviously it's good news and you can't get away from that, but I don't think anybody thinks they're completely out of the woods. I think the recent study in New South Wales that showed there was probably about 2 or 3 times as many cases as we actually thought there that actually got picked up is probably a bit of a warning sign. Look, the main thing I'd be saying at the moment is the general concern about the level of testing, that we really do need to keep up the level of testing now, because the question is whether it is still hiding in there, and that the reason why it's not being picked up is people are not getting tested when they have symptoms, particularly, and that is the main. The health authorities behind the scenes are really petrified that this will be the undoing of everything. So I would say to you that, look, it's good news, and we will bring that on. And I know you want me to stick with the good news line, but also to say that we do need to do our part, Tom.
No, I'm not. Look, don't say that I never talk about bad news, but, we always like to inject some hope. New South Wales, a study of blood tests they're taking during COVID was really interesting. So these are de-identified blood tests, if you like. They all go off to a lab. No one knows who they are from, but it found a massive increase on COVID, so that if you do the numbers on this and apply, if you like, percentages, maybe only about a third of COVID cases during the first wave in New South Wales were actually being picked up.
Yeah, and look, that's news that is similar to what's happened overseas, in fact. What it tells us is that, and this is important for the future, in that the things that have protected us so far in South Australia and New South Wales and hopefully Victoria now have been, first up, this important contact tracing and the testing regime, which picks up the cases and tries to find those that are active and close down those sort of those fires. But the other thing that's happened in New South Wales is that there has actually, until now, been a significant continuation of some level of restrictions in terms of movement, which is the other thing. So first up, people aren't going to work as much. They are wearing masks. They are doing all the other things. So they're not doing as much, which is reduces the spread. So that's the other part of it. So you have the testing and the contact tracing, and you have this other part, which is probably the lesson, because I'll tell you that this morning the AMA has actually put out a press release about a letter we've written to National Cabinet, because we are somewhat concerned about the draft national framework for reopening, which ends up this thing called COVID normal, which is essentially virtually no restrictions at all on movement and back to normal life by Christmas, which I sort of understand the need for it and what people feel like they'd like to get to. But the problem with that is you don't have that extra barrier of reducing movement and doing all these other things, which actually have been very much a part of the reason why we've been able to keep it under control. So, look, what I'd say to you is not an unexpected result, but it wasn't just contact tracing the ones you pick up. It's the ones you actually control by all your other measures.
So I'm going to come at that from another angle, because Victoria is set to have masks, it looks like, till the end of the year. What's being pushed back on here is it's masks in essentially almost all circumstances when you leave the house. Even if you're, running around an oval in the middle of nowhere at 10 o'clock at night, no one's around, have a mask on. The problem being, people are saying, well, that just won't have any benefit, and you might lose buy-in. People, when they should be wearing masks, indoors, public transport, will be so sick of wearing it all day, they'll relax, they'll take it off, they'll slip it down to their neck. Do you see the logic in this push?
I understand the logic in the push to wear the mask, because, and look, it's a balancing act of getting consistency so that people don't have too many rules in their head about when to wear the mask and not to wear the mask, versus the wearing of the mask. Because, as you all know, once you start sort of adding exclusions, look, I won't wear this situation, then it starts spreading to everything else. I think that's going to be the balancing act about the rules of use of masks. And, and I understand where you're coming from a common sense aspect, but there's also this consistency and just sticking to the rules, and also the fact that wearing a mask then actually does remind us that we've still got a problem and we've still got to do all the other things at the same time.
Just wanted to ask you finally about the vaccine. I know we spoke about it earlier this week, but this particular one, it's a bit of a strange type of vaccine where it fights off against COVID essentially after you get it, if you like, and it needs very cold storage. How are we set up to be able to handle the cold storage element once this Pfizer vaccine will get to Australia?
Look, the main thing is we've got a bit of time to get it ready, and the AMA is very much in there saying that we need to start the planning now with, because it needs this thing called cold chain, which means that the vaccine has to be kept at the right temperature, ultra low temperatures during transport, and then when it's about to be used, it can only be, at this stage, defrosted for 5 days and held in normal fridge temperatures. I think it might stretch out to 2 weeks, if that's what my understanding is. But we've got to keep this cold change, otherwise the vaccine actually deteriorates. Now, we have a bit of time compared to other countries at the moment because of our situation, which is great. So the main thing is that we get everybody involved, like the doctors, the GPs particularly, who are probably going to end up doing most of this. They did such a great job during the flu side of things. We just need to get in there early, start build up the real logistics and make this really as slick as possible so we don't lose any of the vaccine and damage it, and make sure it gets to the people that need it at the right time.